Obama and Senate Democrats are going all out, whole hog, for new gun controls. Tomorrow, Vice President Biden's going to meet with gun safety organizations. Thursday, he's going to the NRA. All this is Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein plans to go after handguns, apparently. That would be a direct violation of the Second Amendment. And thus, so I think we're getting a little crazy and out of line here. Let's talk. We have former Obama campaign aide Blake Zeff. We have Katie Pavlich, news editor for townhall.com. And we may get Janine Turner, or we may not if we can hook her in. Blake, let me go to you. First of all, the thing that blows me away is this Dianne Feinstein. No handguns? Are you kidding me? I mean, look, I'd like to make a few changes myself, but no handguns? What is that all about except a violation of the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I haven't seen the proposal, but I'll agree with you. I don't think it's helpful to the cause for people like you and me who do want to see some changes made. Look, I think at the end of the day, if you're President Obama, the way this landscape looks right now is the House is controlled by the Republicans, and the Republicans are not in favor of the gun safety legislation. So what that means is they're going to have to change some minds. And the way that you change some minds here is reaching out to that group of gun owners who are sort of common sense, reasonable gun owners, not allied with the leadership of the NRA, who are, you know, in some part funded by gun manufacturers, and so they've got an incentive to make sure that assault weapons and high-capacity magazines can continue to be manufactured and sold undeterred. But reasonable gun owners, like my father-in-law who likes to hunt, has his gun, but doesn't mind the idea that people might have to submit to a background check in order to get their guns. Those are the people that we need to reach out to make change. Well, and Feinstein's proposal, I think, is not going to be a good example of doing that.
I think, Katie, they are going to go beyond restrictions on assault weapons, and they are going to go beyond these high-capacity clips. Those are the two issues that I sign on to. But on this Feinstein thing, I mean, maybe you have some news I don't have. Besides banning handguns, now, there's a funny thing in here. She's banning rocket launchers. Okay, I'm glad she's banning rocket launchers. I'm not really worried about that. But she also wants to ban 1,000 rifles and shotguns. Now, that goes to Blake's point about hunters. She wants to ban 1,000 rifles and shotguns, and she also wants to ban these handguns. Now, what is up with that? And do you think that Obama and Biden will kowtow to that?
Well, they're taking a political opportunity to push what their real agenda is, and I think that we're seeing that going forward here with this broad approach to more gun control. And I think people forget that it's not just Dianne Feinstein who wants to ban handguns. Her legislation also goes after any kind of detachable magazine that attaches to a semi-automatic handgun, which is pretty much every semi-automatic handgun that exists in this country, whether it's 10 rounds or less, high capacity or not. And what people also forget is when they ask the question, Larry, will President Obama go as far as Dianne Feinstein is suggesting with the banning of 1,000 rifles, shotguns, and then banning all-out handguns? The answer is yes. Let's not forget that President Obama wanted to ban the sale, manufacture, and transfer of all handguns when he was back in Chicago. He has a very anti-gun record. He has a guy running the Justice Department who wanted to brainwash people against guns back in the 90s. His position hasn't changed. And so these are very far left extreme positions that they've taken. And one more point quickly is that we've been hearing a lot about gun safety and that Vice President Joe Biden is going to meet with gun safety organizations. The NRA is a gun safety organization that provides thousands and thousands of training classes a year to thousands of people about how to use guns properly and in not in a disrespectful manner.
Blake Zeff, look at. Ban handguns. Chicago has the toughest laws about banning handguns, and Chicago has become the murder capital of the world. Now, what do you make of that? I don't get this ban handgun thing.
All right, two things. You know, the first thing, I just have to get back to something Katie just said before, which is this notion that Obama is some crazy wackadoodle who wants to take away everyone's guns would be news to anybody who watched his first term, in which he did nothing on gun safety, and that's a complaint coming from the left. So, you know, this idea that he's taking away everyone's guns as a secret agenda, he showed in his first term. Getting to your question now about Chicago, which is a reasonable one, is that it's not just the locality gun regulations that you need to look at, because guns don't just come from the city that you're in. They can come from the state that you're in or the neighboring states. And Illinois, the state, on the state level, doesn't have very tight gun regulations. And certainly the neighboring states don't have the toughest gun regulations in the country. And so, for example, when you look at regulating air pollution, you don't just sort of say, let's focus on the city that we're in. You look at sort of the region or have a national plan,
right.
and that's what you're talking about with Chicago as well.
Let me guess who shut up. Let's bring in radio personality and great friend Janine Turner. Janine, it just seems like Team Obama, you got Joe Biden out there, Team Obama, you got Dianne Feinstein. It just seems like the whole Democratic Party now is going to go for unbelievably restrictive gun controls that they've never been able to get in the past. What's your take on it, and what should we be doing?
Well, I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I think the First Amendment right is there for a reason, and if you look at history, you know, as soon as the people are disarmed, dictatorship is the next step. I think it's the Second Amendment right for a reason. But, you know, Larry, I really feel like this is sort of an American issue and an American problem. I mean, I don't believe that we just need to have a new law passed. I think this is a cultural issue as well. In other words, we need to have more responsibility as Americans and as families with our guns, A, but also B, let's look at the culture. Let's look at the TV, the movies. And, you know, I was in Cliffhanger. I was in one of them. The violence in the movies, the violence on TV, the violence in the video games. I think all of us in Hollywood should take a look at this. We should rethink what we're doing to the generation of children that are just being immersed with violence. And I also believe that we can't just rely on Hollywood to do it. It's an American problem. Americans need to come together and say, you know what? We all are sort of a party to this violence.
You know,
let's not support these movies anymore. Let's not buy these tickets to these movies anymore. Let's not buy these video games.
Besides these violent movies, besides these violent video games, besides that we should have to deal with the mentally ill, both documenting their background and putting them back into institutions. What about putting, I'm going to ask you directly, Janine, what about putting some faith back into the schools? Some faith back into the schools. You want prayer of your choice? Faith. That's right. Faith, as in we know between right and wrong. We believe in a higher power. We know that it is wrong to go out and kill somebody. It seems to me that the teachers union and a lot of bureaucrats and a lot of politicians have done everything they can to take any sense of moral responsibility, a.k.a. faith, out of the classroom.
I agree with you completely. I think that faith is important and the moral compass is important. I also think education about drugs and alcohol is important because so many of these things happen under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I agree with you. Faith, education about drugs and alcohol, it's a cultural issue as well as you say, it's a faith as well.
All right, hang on.